Side chat with the Vice President APAC of Varonis, Scott Leach. Varonis' business in the Asia-Pacific region is headed up by Scott. He oversees key markets in Australia, Singapore, India and Japan. With a focus on expanding Varonis' regional footprint, he steers a dedicated team of cybersecurity professionals on a mission to help organisations, including law firms, strengthen their data protection strategies. This is Scott Leach. Scott, great to have you here.
Thanks, Adam. Good to see you.
Let's dive straight in. Your specialty area is data security.
It is.
And it seems the vast bulk of breaches we've had recently have been centred around data. Why is that? Why is data so important in this space and so prized at the moment?
Well, think about it, right? I mean, think about all the breaches that we've seen in the press. Go back to, to Optus, to Medibank, to Latitude, to what was last week was Western Sydney University. Given all the TV references, is anyone watching Ashley Madison on Netflix?
Oh, yeah.
That's a great data breach story if anyone's looking for something to watch this weekend.
Oh.
I mean, it's all about data, right? Data's the target. That's how these cyber criminal groups get paid. The more of the data they can steal, the easier it is for them to monetize it. So I think that's why data is the target. You talked a little bit about the kind of inside threat vector versus the external threat vector. So the external attackers obviously want your data because they're going to charge you to get it back, or they're going to charge you, you're going to sell it on the dark web. The insider's looking for intellectual property, but at the end of the day, it's all about data.
When we've tried to solve this data security problem, why has it been such a problem? Why do so many projects in the space that seem to provide great promise end up failing?
Yeah, I think there's a few things to probably talk through there, right? I think Dave made the point that there's been lots of investment in security technologies. All of those organisations that we talked about who have been breached have spent a lot of money in cybersecurity controls, but a lot of that money has been on trying to protect the bad guys from getting in. It's been endpoints and networks and firewalls and SIEMs and SOCs. Very little of that money has been actually focused on protecting what really matters, which is the data. And for most businesses, if you think about it, it's a scale problem. Like a lot of the businesses in this room probably are sitting on tens of millions of files across on-prem infrastructure, across cloud, across SaaS. And so trying to figure out, of all of that, where is it? What's sensitive? Who's got access to it? How's it being used? Is it being used normally or abnormally? It's been a very difficult problem historically to solve.
So what are examples when a CISO does, they're on top of it when they know their data better than most? Give us an example of when you see that, and how can that result in protecting against potential disastrous data breach? Stopping them before they happen by really knowing what the data is.
Yeah, we've got some good CISOs in the room actually who are using some of our technology. Chris is over the back there, who's probably a good example. I think it starts with recognising that data is the target, right? So you need to be able to answer questions like, where is my data? In all of that data, what's sensitive? Who's got access to that sensitive data? And how is it being used? So I think the CISOs who are doing that well can answer those questions, right? They know where their data is, they know where it's sensitive, they know where it's exposed, and they're tracking how it's being used. Think of the banking analogy, right? Credit card, banks do a great job monitoring transactions. We heard earlier about some of the work that's being done at Westpac. Most businesses today aren't monitoring transactions on their data. They're not seeing what's happening to their data. They're struggling just to figure out where their data is. And so it's those, being able to answer those questions.
What are the big trends in data security that are happening right now?
So, look, I was lucky enough to be at the RSA Security Conference in San Francisco a few weeks ago. I think there was 45,000 people there. I think there were 750 vendors exhibiting on the showroom floor. Felt like about two, kind of MCG-size football fields worth of vendors. And AI was everywhere, right? Every banner had AI on it somewhere. And so I think AI, from a data security standpoint, is actually pretty interesting. We're talking to a lot of CISOs today that are going down the journey of trying to deploy technology like Copilot to make life easier for their users. One of the big concerns, though, there is security. And so when you turn Copilot on, it has access to all of the information that you as a user have access to. And so if somebody's left the HR folder exposed and I go into Copilot and I say, how much is my boss being paid? Copilot's going to give me that information back. We did some work with an organisation last week where we put in a Copilot prompt give me a list of all the tax file numbers that are out there that I've got access to. Copilot brings back a list of tax file numbers.
Wow.
You can ask Copilot, can you put that into a nicely formatted spreadsheet for me so that I can see it all in spreadsheet form? And Copilot returns that information to you. And so, that kind of Gen AI and its impact on data security, I think, is a really interesting space at the moment. Data security has always been a problem, but a lot of organizations have hidden behind the fact that, is anybody really going to exploit it? Are they really going to be able to find it? Are they going to go down navigating through all of these folders or SharePoint sites to try and find the sensitive data? Gen AI makes it easy, right?
You're sort of bringing that data up from the bowels to the surface for people to find it if they want.
Exactly. Just ask it a question. And if you've got access to the data, it will come back.
You're also hearing examples of people unwittingly, by asking a question about a report or something into a GPT, can you analyse this for me? You're then releasing that out into the wild. And if you don't know which people in your organisation are using certain platforms, even at home, to cut a few corners to prepare a report, and is there this concept I've heard of shadow AI, where you might be pretty confident about your organisation and the protections around its data, but if you're then using me as a third-party vendor for your accounts or something, and I'm using someone else who's using a weaker, less rigorous system, you could be inadvertently feeding your stuff 2 or 3 steps down the food chain and not realising you were potentially releasing your data into the wild, even though you had great policies at your end. These are concerning spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we heard about supply chain came up a little bit before as well. A lot of businesses obviously have to collaborate in order to operate. And so they have to open up some of their data to third parties to be able to come in and access. And again, if you're not monitoring that, you're not controlling that, you don't have visibility of sensitive information that you might be sharing out, that's a real risk area.
AI is hard-baked into Varonis's protection platforms. What strategies can organisations employ to be able to deploy generative AI and technologies like Copilot safely? You pointed to some of the risks. People are going to keep using these things because the efficiency gains seem early on to be amazing. People who are on different coding Copilots and other Office Copilots raving about how much easier it's making to do some part of their jobs. How do we deploy these things safely?
I think there's two main things to look at. I think the first main thing is making sure that you haven't got sensitive data that's exposed to everybody. And there's technology out there that will help lock all of that down so that sensitive information isn't able to be surfaced by Copilot. So if you ask it how much my boss is being paid, the HR file that contains all of that sensitive information is locked down and not accessible to Copilot to be able to return data. So the first piece is making sure the sensitive data is protected and not accessible. The second piece is once you turn it on, you need to be monitoring it. You need to understand what a user's actually asking it, what sensitive documents are being returned in the responses to the questions that you're asking, so that you can see how your users are interacting with it. You can see if sensitive information is being inadvertently shared. And you can detect if somebody's using it maliciously. If I've got a user who's asking it for what usernames and passwords do I have access to? What credit cards can I get access to? How much is everyone in the business earning? What PII data is out there? They're risky prompts that you should be able to see and take action on in real time.
When these technologies were first being talked about as coming down the line, I did a session with a futurist who pointed to some of these Copilots and expressed exactly these concerns, that you might be unwittingly opening up a level of visibility into areas of the organisation you're not even aware that you're doing. In the time between them first coming to market and us having seen some of these potential problems, are the systems getting better? Is it easier to be safe? Are they having some of these safety protocols inbuilt, or is the obligation still heavily on the consumer of the Copilot or other product to do their due diligence and make sure it's being used as rigorously as possible?
It still pretty heavily falls to the organisations that are deploying the Copilots. Most of them, by default, are surfacing information that you as a user have access to. And so if you haven't got your data governance under control and you've got sensitive information sitting all over the place that's open to anybody in the business to be able to use, Copilot, other Gen AI will find it.
So, as a wrap up here, what's a good next step everyone in the audience can take to assess if their company's data protection strategy is on the right track? I'll save you the trouble of saying, pop out and check out the Varonis stand and other vendors during our many breaks during the course of the day, because you might feel a bit self-conscious saying that, so I'll say that.
I appreciate you saying that, for me.
No trouble at all. What is the next step someone can take right now to see? Because everyone here would think, we've got a data protection strategy, I think we're cool. What's a good litmus test of whether it's on track or not?
Yeah, look, I mean, so look, I'll take your shameless self-promotion and I'll use it myself. We offer a complimentary data risk assessment, a co-pilot readiness assessment, where it takes a couple of hours of your time. We'll turn our technology on in your environment. We'll scan and discover where all of your sensitive information is. We'll show you where it's exposed. We'll show you how it's being used, and we'll give you a plan to fix it.
In fact, I think there's not only the chance to win a Lego Hulk Buster, but if you go to Stand4, you can get one of those securing Microsoft Copilot demos running right now.
We have got one running right outside.
Fascinating space to be in the moment. Thanks for sharing your observations.
Thanks very much.
No problem at all. Big round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen.